It's good to see you all again. Are we live? Can we go, Barb?
Not yet. One moment. Still waiting on YouTube.
All right, perfect.
Okay, all set.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all again. Happy to be here. I would like to call this meeting to order, September 14th, 2021 at 5:08 p.m. First order of business, I would like to have the approval of minutes from August 31st, 2021. So I move that the Citizens Ad Hoc Committee for the renaming of Memorial High School approve the minutes for the meeting date, August 31st, 2021.
Just clarifying, you're making the motion, Julian?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second then.
And with that, we can kind of get into this. We've done a lot of filtering over these.
I'm sorry, Julian, you gotta take a vote on the minutes.
All in favor, say aye for the moving to
Aye.
approve these minutes. Okay, any opposed?
Aye.
All right, thank you guys. Motion granted. Oh yeah. With that being said, like I said, we've been together for some time now, and we kind of filter things. So I think that it's pretty necessary or easy for us to kind of dive right into things. I'm kind of gonna speak through some of these through the results, and Mark, you can feel free to jump in whenever. But I'll just kind of talk through this, and then we can have discussion, and people can, we can just open up for dialogue. This Ranked Choice app was super cool. I had never used it, but it broke down our votes and in different rounds. But the first round, Vel Phillips got the most first place votes. Actually, she was tied with Madison Memorial, and as Mark explained to me earlier, she got the nod. That name got the nod because it then went to second place votes, and she got the most second place votes. So that was, as a group, as a consensus, that was our lead vote getter. And then what the app does is it goes to the second round and it removes Vel Phillips, and it does the same thing with the rankings. And in round two, Madison Memorial exceeded. Round three, Memorial High School exceeded after those first two submissions were removed. In round four, Darlene M. Hancock Memorial High School exceeded the quota once those three names were removed. As Mark explained to me earlier, there was 4 rounds, not because there was 4 names that we can submit as a committee, but because that was all that was necessary for those names to rise. If there had been more split decisions, there could have been 8 rounds or more, but because that was all that was necessary, due to our submissions and our rankings, it only took 4 rounds, and those were the 4 rounds. The 4 names that were selected. I do want to acknowledge that there were other rankings. Some people ranked all the names, and you can't see it, not because they weren't considered in this in the poll, but just because they wouldn't all fit on the paper. But Mark assured that if anyone was interested in seeing the rest of the names for people who ranked all the names, we could make that happen. But for the sake of this meeting, it wasn't really necessary.
Can we see the totals for the first round and the second round? Can we see those screens?
Yeah, Barb, you want to share your screen?
Mark, do you want to do it or you want me to do it?
Why don't you go ahead and share, and then I can
Okay.
talk through or answer any questions that people have.
Okay.
I also, just for transparency purposes, I did put together a spreadsheet with all of the responses, so that every ranking that everyone made will be available, and I'll send that to Barb for the record. I don't know that we need it for this meeting, but just for transparency purposes, I wanted that to be available.
Thank you.
So if you scroll down slowly, Barb, you guys can see how the the sheet is laid out with each person's name and then their rankings in order. And so this will be the first round of votes. And as you get to the bottom, it shows you how many first place votes each name had. And then it talks about how the tiebreaker was calculated.
Okay, so first round, Madison Memorial High School and Bell Phillips Memorial High School both received 3 votes each.
Correct.
3
Okay.
first place votes, that's correct.
3
And then,
first place votes, yes.
Yeah.
right. And so as Mark,
then-
I think go ahead, Mark. It goes to how many second place votes determines the tiebreaker.
Or beyond that if necessary to break the tie. So even though no name had a majority of first place votes, you can still determine which is the highest preference based on all of the rankings.
And then if you keep scrolling, it's the same thing except for they remove Vel Phillips and so on and so forth as new names are elected based on the statistics. But I kind of just want to kick things off for discussion. I mean, it's open. I want to know what thoughts are on this sheet and the results that came back. And then we kind of got to discuss how we want to move forward in terms of submissions. I guess I'll start things off with,
Sorry, can we make sure that we stick with the process, that we're following the rules that are set out before us? Sorry. What are the top 4 names, Mark?
So Barb, if you could just pop up to the top of the document again. I apologize if not everybody had a chance to review this before the meeting. So those are the top.
I'm sorry, you guys.
So those are the top 4 rankings among the 12 names that we considered based on this voting rubric. Ranking rubric, I should say.
Got it.
So really sort of this is the results part, and everything below that in the document just explains how we got there.
Yeah. I just want to open our process doc to make sure we don't skip any of the steps.
we are supposed to review public comments and our discussion. So what we have left are the comments and the public input for the names that were the previous 12. Now that we see these results, I think that it's necessary for us to kind of talk about the 4 names or the 12 all in order. Like as Mark mentioned earlier, we as a committee don't have to select the 4 that had the most, that won the votes. We can submit 4 totally different names. But this is just a driving force, and it's kind of good for us to see in terms of what the consensus of the group.
But actually, the process calls for us submitting 1 name and then all the others.
We have to distinct 1 name. We have to have choose one that we as a group select, but we can have up to 4 total submissions, 4 total names. So we're on the same page there. I just hadn't got that far in explaining that.
I'm sorry, Julian.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So we do, and I think we have plenty enough time to do this, but we, as Cynthia kind of, as she pointed out, we would have to have one that as a committee we are distinguishing as our choice, but we are allowed up to 3 other selections to submit for the board or to the board and for public input. Amber?
Yeah, I just have a question. knowing that the step from here is heading to a public forum, is the hope of this group to bring forward the 4 names we are hoping to bring to the board? Or I guess that would be something that I'm interested to know in terms of what we're hoping to accomplish tonight is what is it we would like to bring to the forum? And it looks like Mark's got a response.
Before Mark goes, I think that, you know, in my hope as the chair, it'd be that we would have our 4 names and our selection, and we would bring that to the, we would figure that out tonight, and then we would bring that to the forum. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, same. I think that if we land on 4 tonight, that our proposed selections for the board, subject to input at the public hearing.
Is there anyone who is opposed to that, you know, that kind of direction for tonight? Is it, do you think we need more time, or is everyone kind of okay with that in terms of what we hope to accomplish tonight? Okay, seems like.
Yeah, I
everybody-
think if we could go through the public comments and then just agree on what those 4 names are, then
Perfect.
we can adjourn per the process that we laid out and schedule that public hearing.
What public comments are you referring to, Cynthia? I'm confused.
They are in 3.1.
Oh, the ones we've received up till
Right.
now.
Right,
Okay.
correct.
There's
And
just a
Barb,
handful that we received since our last meeting, right?
Mhm.
Yes, but Barb was kind enough to put together, per the ask Mark, when you and I were putting the process together, I had asked Barb and Julian if they would be able to group the massive amount of public comments to, if they could match them to the proposed names. And they did that in this infographic.
The infographic as well as the PDF file, so they both are there.
Okay, thank
So
you.
there's one PDF file there that gets the comments from the last time that we did it, which was 8/27. So that's just the handful that we've gotten generally. And then the other ones just include what we had up until that last meeting. So the infographic and the longer PDF list of all the names that are tailored to the ones that you had left are just up until that last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
If you guys, I don't know, if there was only 2 oh, never mind. There were 1, 2, 3. So we have 4 new comments since our last previous meeting. Was everyone able to look at those? If not, we can pull them up quick and we can read through them, or have time to kind of look through them.
Are you seeing them on my screen now?
Yeah,
Okay, I can make it a little bigger. They're kind of tiny.
yeah, that's good right there.
Better?
And I believe a number of the comments are in favor of not changing the name at all out of the new comments.
Out of the new comments, Sean?
That's right.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I think it's worth reiterating for the benefit of the public that it's up to the school board whether or not to change the name. That's outside the scope of this committee. Our job is just to determine if the name is changed, what name we recommend out of the ones that are nominated. And the school board will do with that information as they wish.
So can we take a look at the infographic that Barb was kind enough to work very hard on putting together?
I can't take the credit for that. That was a staff member who was extremely talented.
Could we take a look at the infographic that a staff member who's extremely talented took the time to put together, in addition to Barb being extremely talented?
Thank you.
Yeah, it was super good. Super straightforward too.
Oh. Sorry about that. Hit the
No,
wrong
you're
key.
fine.
There we
You're
go.
fine.
So more than half of the people are in favor of changing the name.
Yeah, and this infographic isn't new. We had this at our last meeting.
Yep.
Would it be possible to put a link to this in the chat? Oh, there isn't a chat.
Sorry, can't do chat, public meeting.
It is in board docs, because that's what I was looking at. So.
Thanks.
And in the email from Barb yesterday, there's a link.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. Could we take a look down at kind of where the public was looking at? It looks like those are a bunch of the names. Can we look down and see kind of which comments were tied to? So these were in favor and tied back to these proposed names.
Yeah.
I just found it interesting that our rankings, we picked the same top, well, not quite the same top 4 as the public comments,
Yeah.
but in reverse order.
Mhm.
There's a significant disconnect between the amount of public comment on particular names and the names that this committee preferred.
When I was looking at, oh, go ahead, Amber. Amber has her hand up.
Thanks. I'm just trying to wait my turn. I think the one thing as I look through our results and through the comments is I continue to come back to my concern. And I don't know if I voiced this, so I don't mean to say come back to as if we haven't addressed it, but there is a question for me with such a heavy reliance on public comments about who really has access to these comments, who has access to this forum, who has access to knowing how this works and what this process is. And so I think we absolutely should take public sentiment and comments into account. But I also think that one of the things I was encouraged by in our vote was that it seemed to be a vote more on the merits of what the name change would mean moving forward, rather than simply what public comments often turn into, which is simply a popularity contest. And so it's not necessarily my opposition or support of a name or of comments. I just am acutely aware of how few people of certain backgrounds don't have access to this process or are unfamiliar with this process altogether.
Agreed. Good point. Sean?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak up and say I really appreciated what Amber said just now. I think it's really important. I've spoke to a number of my students about this. None of them had known about the process at all, and they all had opinions on it, and they're not really reflected in the public comments. And I'll just say anecdotally, from the individual conversations I've had with people, they don't necessarily line up with the data that we have for the public comments, which isn't, again, to dismiss those public comments, but I think there's multiple layers of context and perspective that we can take into account. So just again, Amber, thanks for voicing that out, because I've been thinking about it. And I think it's really important, especially when we think of the equity of input and perspectives in our community, that we're thinking beyond just, most people don't know that this is going on, unfortunately, and the more outreach we do, the better. But in the absence of that, we have an opportunity, and I think a responsibility, to try to think beyond just what's on the paper.
Again,
I just want to mention to make sure that people are aware, and that's all I'm doing, is that emails were sent separately to all the student body at Memorial. And we do have a Facebook and Twitter presence on this topic. Yes, and then aside from our website and these meetings and knowing about them, I understand that not everybody has access. I'm just telling you the kinds of ways that we tried to reach out.
Thanks for that, Barb. Eliana?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add on to what Ms. Jansen and what Sean just said about how these public comments have been following the same pattern the whole time we've been in this meeting. These meetings, there's always been kind of the same 2 or 3 names at the forefront of what people are commenting. But I've found it interesting that as I've been talking to my peers at Memorial, almost everyone that I talk to has the exact same opinion, and it's not an opinion that is shared by the majority of the public comments. And as Barb said, like, yes, we did all get that email, and I know we've read through a lot of comments from students, but there are many students who didn't respond to that email for whatever reason and still hold opinions. And I've talked to, quite frankly, a lot of people in the past 2 weeks, and they have all shared support for the exact same 2 names that are very similar. So I just think that that is something that I definitely took into account when I was ranking my choices, and something that I think is important for us to take into account as we go through these public comments and go through this discussion, is that yes, the public has an opinion, but also the students clearly have an opinion that is different from that of their parents and former graduates and everything like that.
I think so. Barbara, you want to go back to?
Oh, I have my hand raised. I don't think.
Oh,
you
I
can
didn't even see it. No, I didn't see it. It was in the corner. Cynthia.
Sorry, I was trying to find the hand. Just a couple things. One, Eliana, thank you for your insight. And Amber. Sean, just clarification. Do you teach at Memorial?
No, I don't.
Okay, so non-Memorial students giving feedback. That's all I just wanted to verify. But Amber, you teach at
but
Memorial.
nonetheless-
Eliana, you attend Memorial, right? Yep. Okay, thank you.
But nonetheless, City of Madison or MMSD residents and students. Yeah.
Yeah, Sean, I understand that. I'm just clarifying for anyone watching from home to set the context that you work at a different high school and spoke to some students there, but that Amber works at Memorial and Eliana attends Memorial. Just for context. Thank you. Thanks, Julian.
So I think that I think that everyone has valid points. I think they're very good, and they're good to note. So thank you for the 3, for Amber, Eliana, Sean, for sharing. However, I kind of differentiate a little bit. Obviously, you guys can see, we can all see each other's votes, and I think that was one of the most beneficial things about this, because it's great for transparency, and that's what they didn't have initially when this happened in the 60s. But I do think that from an equitable standpoint, I get where Amber's coming from. I think that though it would be, we do still have to consider what we have in front of us. So with that being said, I don't think that I wanted to see what the group felt, and I talked to Mark and I talked to Barbara about this earlier. And we kind of spoke on this before about the significance of Madison Memorial High School and Memorial High School being 2 separate selections, and I'm aware of that. But as we move forward and we have our own autonomy to kind of do as we agree upon as a committee, I just think that with the amount of public input for Bruce Diamond and for the similarity of these names, I just think that it would be a disservice not to move his name forward as one of the 4. And I think that somehow, as a committee, we select between Madison Memorial High School and Memorial High School. Again, I want to reiterate, I know that those are 2 different selections with their own merit and hold their own weight. But as for the purpose of conversation, I wanted to say that and see what thoughts are on that, and kind of talk about the pros and cons of that, because I do think that Bruce Diamond should be in the 4. He was my second choice vote. And obviously what you guys were saying was very beneficial in terms of not taking a public, not making it a popularity thing. But I do think it's something to be considered. And these 2 names being so similar, I would just be curious to see what thoughts are from the committee on that. Mark and then Eliana.
Pretty sure Eliana had her hand up first.
Thanks.
The order stays good, Eliana.
I just had kind of a clarifying question, I guess, about Madison Memorial and Memorial. So I'm not a sports person, but I was talking to some other students and they were saying that there's already a memorial in our conference that we play against. So they were saying that even if the school was named Memorial, it would then always have to be called Madison Memorial in the sports world anyways. And I just wanted to like see if there was a clarifying answer on that, if that's like accurate information and how
Beloit
that would
Memorial.
kind of factor into things.
Beloit Memorial's in our conference, and they kind of have the same reference as Madison. You know, if you're in Beloit, they say I went to Memorial and things like that. So that's what they're referring to. They do have their city name in front of it technically, but their Memorial as well. So in terms of your question, I guess that makes sense. You know, we would have to still identify it as Madison Memorial, but only, you know, in very select encounters, I guess. I don't know how big of a concern that would be because you don't play Beloit Memorial every day, you know.
Right.
But,
I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page about that aspect of things.
Understood. Mark?
I agree with what Eliana just said. Even if we take Madison out of the name, it will still be referred to as Madison Memorial, just to differentiate it in the same way that, you know, Madison West, Madison East, and Madison La Follette to some extent. I'm not sure if there are any other schools in the state named after Governor La Follette, but there probably are. And so that's usually what it's going to be called. But this is not a motion, but I agree with Julian's sentiments. And I think that for all intents and purposes, at this point, Madison Memorial and Memorial are essentially the same response. And so I would be in favor of removing Memorial High School, the third choice, and replacing it with Bruce Dahmen in our 4 nominations that we send to the board. Like I said, that's not a motion yet, but I wanted to throw it out for discussion.
Thanks for that, Mark. Cynthia?
Yeah, to Mark's point and Ileana's point, I actually just did a quick Google search just to see even online how our city high schools are listed. Madison East is listed as Madison East High School. La Follette and East are just La Follette High School, East High School. I don't think we would be doing a disservice to remove the name Madison because these schools are seated in Madison. And I was thinking about the school fight song and some of the other things as an alum. None of them say Madison Memorial High, they just say Memorial High. So I think there's a presumption, to Mark's point and to Eliana's concern, that it's Madison Memorial. So I would actually maybe even ask us to just consider removing Madison Memorial and remove the name James Madison altogether as a consideration, even though, you know, we're seated in Madison, and just discuss Memorial High School.
Thanks for that, Cynthia. Amber?
Well, it's time to put some cards on the table for a lot of us, and I apologize that my phone's going off. And Julian broached the subject, and so I'm gonna go right at it. Bruce Dahmen's the best boss I ever had. He personally called me and offered me a job at Memorial. He's the reason I'm back at Memorial. All that being said, I think that our issue stems from the fact that we continue to name buildings after human beings, which I think is unhealthy. And as a history teacher, and I'm sure Sean would, I guess I shouldn't assume for Sean, but I would guess Sean would second the notion that we just continually are learning new things about historical figures, and that as we all know about ourselves, we're fallible, to say the least.
Yeah.
And so I guess my concern with any of the names, not just Bruce, but with any of the names, is will we have the same issue in 50 years? And I would hate to punt this issue down the road. So that's point number one. And point number two for me is that the sentiment of the original proposal to the school board was to shift away from a white male dominated naming process and instead to recognize a person of color, and more specifically, a woman of color. And so that certainly was reflected in the way I chose to vote, was in the sentiment of the original proposal, while still acknowledging my first point, which was that I don't think it's healthy to name buildings after people regardless. And so I'm going to try and stay quiet for the rest of the evening at this point, but those are my two opinions that I think I wanted to be clear about.
Thank you for that. But please don't be quiet. If you have something to say, speak up. It's the time to do it. We are chugging along, and this is why this committee was put together with all these backgrounds and diversity. So speak up when you feel the need to. We appreciate your comments. Frank, is your hand up? Okay. Try to do it it's Ron's turn, but try to do it on the platform so you get put in line. Ron, when you're ready.
Sorry about that. I want to bring something up that I've been talking with people about.
Hi, Gio.
I'm trying to cook dinner for Gio. Sorry. I didn't even really think about this until somebody did bring it up. But it was when you're talking about sports and Memorial and the number of students that they end up going to college on scholarships. A lot of them are when that's being looked at, and actually even academically, they're looking at schools that have a tradition and schools that are the kids on the that are going to be going to college and going to be going to the good colleges or going into sports. They know the name of the school. If the school name completely disappears, and these students put in, I went to whatever name school, they will not be looked at the same as if it is Madison Memorial High School, as it is known now. That is something that was said to me, and I said, I guess I get it, but I've been thinking about that. And Eliana, your point when you said, I'm not in sports and all that, that actually reminded me of this conversation that I had. And I'm not saying that that's the biggest thing, but you have to remember the school and its students that go on and do things, they remember the name of the school. And you change a name of a school and you start to lose those people that are looking at I'm going to say resumes, but the applications, and they're, well, I don't know who this is because I've never seen the name of the school. So that's just something I just want to throw out there.
Mark.
I appreciate Ron's branding argument. I agree that's pretty important. And I think it's interesting to Amber's point that other than Memorial, there were no nominations, well, other than a couple of unserious ones, that were not for humans. There were no nominations based on place names or ideas or anything like that. That's interesting. And I think maybe that's just inertia because so many buildings have been named for humans that people didn't necessarily think outside that box. And I'm glad, I think Cynthia brought up Beloit Memorial, because you may remember complaining multiple times before about if we just name it Memorial, it's Memorial to whom? And I've been trying to figure out who Beloit Memorial is a memorial to, and there certainly isn't any information on their website. It may be, on a plaque somewhere, and it may also be lost to the mist of time, but it's clearly not an important part of their branding to say to who or whom Beloit Memorial is a memorial to. Just a data point.
Thank you. Frank, I believe you were next. You didn't see,
Yeah.
you got to figure out that hand raising
I'm
function, but I remember you, man.
I see the clapping hand, but I'm not seeing the hand raising. Just a couple of comments. I agree with the sentiment to add Bruce for, the reasons that Amber mentioned, for the reasons that, the community shared, and also just due to my own experience in the 15 years our kids were there. As far as naming schools after people, I would agree, but I think there's probably 32 schools with, people's names. So I think unless you had some kind of plan to to address that. I think to stop at this point and not name it after a person, and might not make total sense, but, and then the third thing is, I looked at all the names of all the schools, and I do agree with Amber that, 90% of them are named after places or men, just 10% after women. So, that's part of what guided my decision in both selection and ranking. So just want to add those items.
Thank you, Frank. Sean?
Yeah, lots of good points being made, and lots of things that I'm definitely are not captured simply by submitting a ballot, right? And I think that that's where we're really getting down to the nitty gritty. I am not opposed to combining the two memorial options. So if that comes to a vote, I'll be fine with that. However, I do have some trepidation with choosing to put forward an option that is simply Memorial or James Madison Memorial, for the reason that Mark had kind of mentioned about who or what are we memorializing. I really believe that the simplify approach to changing the name sort of does not meet the challenge that came to us in the initial proposal, which is we have a school that is named after a person whose history should no longer be honored and shouldn't have been honored in the first place, that we've decided to not just name after that person, but to memorialize, right? We don't have La Follette Memorial High School, right? There was a very intentional choice to memorialize James Madison. And to me, if we simply say, well, it's just Memorial now, or well, it's Madison Memorial now, that is in a way making a change that isn't really a change, right? It's still a pretty comfortable change, and it's whitewashing a little bit of the history there and saying, you know what, we're actually going to kind of hold on to that. We're not really willing to fully let go of that name and that decision that this community or certain people in this community made to name that school. And so for me, that's why I ranked that choice last, because I feel that it sends really the wrong message to our community. That's like, oh, if we just get rid of James, or we just get rid of James Madison, then everything's, kosher. And I, from what I've heard and the public comments that we've read, I think that people that feel harmed by that choice might not feel that way. And then as to Bruce Dahmen, I really agree with Amber, what she said about, it is sticky, messy naming something after a person. We have a problem in this country where we're very averse to change and confronting our history. So when these things do come up, right, it's like, well, there were good things about them, right? And we do struggle to say, okay, we actually just need to change this and make it right. So I do share that concern. I just want to point out, we did receive public comment and testimony from a member of this committee that their experience with Bruce Dahmen wasn't necessarily what the dominant narrative is. And so I would just talk about having to change the name of a school. When someone is such a recent figure in the community, there hasn't been time for that history to be unearthed, for there to be sort of like a solidified, legacy or opinion about that person. And so, not that I'm saying that that's going to happen, but I just feel that, especially given the fact that we had people say to us as a committee, hey, my experience was not positive with this person. My child's experience was not positive with this person. I think that holds a lot of weight, especially when we're trying to repair harm and do right by our community and do right by marginalized groups in our community. So I think that that's a really important consideration as well. And I think that's all I've got for now.
I'm sorry, I just want to jump in. He was a high school principal.
Sorry, I think he broke up.
Asked to, if there's problems with a student and stuff, parents are going to be upset, whatever. So I don't even think that should be I don't know. I think that's silly. Sorry. I'm sorry I had to jump in.
I'm just gonna continue speaking to say that I think it's perhaps perceived as insulting to say that a parent's concerns about how their student was treated in school are silly. So I just kind of want to add here that I think my experience in schools is very different than experience that a lot of other students and families have in our schools. And the proposal that was brought to us was based on that idea, right? We know that students feel unwelcome in their schools, and to say, let me put it this way. I'm a teacher. If I have a student who has really negative experiences with me and they feel like I've been biased against them, they feel that perhaps I discriminated against them, that's not silly, right? Even if I don't agree with them, that's not silly. That's
Hold on,
very
Sean.
serious.
If you're not speaking, can you everyone mute if you're not speaking? There's a dog barking.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop talking. It's the dog in my courtyard. It's the worst
Oh,
thing
okay,
ever.
okay.
But that's
Okay.
all I got for now. But I really think it's important to point out that this is not a silly concern, and we should not, as a community, dismiss it.
Thanks for your input, Sean. Very great points. Eliana, as we go down the line.
Yeah, Sean kind of touched on a couple of the different things that I was gonna speak on as well. First of all, in response to the whole Madison Memorial thing, I too am in favor of putting them together, and I agree with Sean that leaving it as Madison Memorial does kind of seem to be a little bit like taking the safe route, I guess, and saying like, we're just gonna take away this one minuscule part of this name that we've decided is offensive. And it does seem a little bit like not kind of rising to the whole challenge. But what I will say about just the memorial is I disagree with Sean in that I don't feel like keeping that keeps the memorial to James Madison, because if you read, I believe it was Karen Cullen, but I'm not sure, the person who submitted just Memorial High School, in that proposal, it did say that they were proposing it to be a memorial to all students who went to the school and students who went on to do great things, and like kind of as a unifying name that everyone would have something to look back on and feel like they are being remembered at this school, not so much that it's just keeping that part of the name that everyone recognizes. So I just wanted to bring that up because that's part of why I personally ranked that name pretty high, is because I felt like that was kind of a really nice sentiment, and to be able to feel like there's a name that kind of is naming it after everyone in a sense, I feel like that's a really great kind of community thing. In response to Bruce Dahman, I was also going to bring up that public comment that we had from a member of our committee, because that is a concern that I have as well. I don't love the idea of naming a school after an administrator, just because so many people have so many different experiences with those people, and it is kind of like erasing the bad experiences in a way. If we say, oh, well, all of the public comments said he was great, that doesn't account for everyone who has possibly felt differently in the past. And it seems like potentially a name that would have to be revisited in a bunch of years. Not that I don't know anything, obviously, about Bruce Dahman's past that hasn't been brought up to us, but I'm just saying that it does seem in a way to be the riskiest choice, I guess, in my opinion. And also on the topic of Bruce Dahman, everyone who has made comments about Bruce Dahman in this group is someone who had personal experiences with him for the most part. And a lot of the public comments are the same way. As someone who has never interacted with this man and who goes to Memorial High School, where almost none of the students have also had any personal experiences with him or his family, it is interesting to me that kind of every time that I would bring up that his name was a prominent choice or that someone would mention it, half the people said, I don't know who that is. And the other half of the people said, that doesn't seem to make a ton of sense because no one here currently knows who that is in terms of students. So I just think that it is something to consider, that the current students don't have the same strong pull and strong connection to Bruce Dahman that many of the people making these public comments do. So I think that that's kind of another way that the public comments are skewed a little bit towards these graduates and alumni. And I'm not saying that that means that we shouldn't be considering that name. I just think that it's important to kind of put out the student perspective, I guess, on that name.
Great point. Great point. Mark and Cynthia, I just want to interject quick because I had some points to Eliana's case. I think that what you said, all valid points. I just really want to recircle back to the whole memorial thing and the unifying thing. I'm kind of in favor of putting a name there because of all the things you guys said about the negative effects or the negative potentials. There are positives that can be highlighted, history, impact, things like that of the right person of merit who served people and did right. I think that's why most schools do have a name before it. The whole unifying thing is a good sentiment to have, but who does it unify in particular? And more directly, you have a chance. And just going back to how this was submitted from Maya Berry, how unified do the Black alumni feel or the marginalized communities feel just off of a name, a memorial, or something that's a safe route or something like that? I think I ranked Val Phillips first because keeping that in mind, there's something profound about a name like that and someone with that history that can be taught to not just one race, but all races. And that seems more unifying to me than just having a memorial there. So with that being said, I'll go to, and that's a name that unifies, not just the memorial. And that kind of excludes that whole safe route thing too. But with that said, I'll go with, it's Mark and then Cynthia.
So I am, notwithstanding what you just said, Julian, I'm definitely warming to the idea of Memorial and not Madison Memorial. And I think I agree with everything Eliana said, and I'll pile on one more thing, which is that by dropping Madison, yes, people will still call it Madison Memorial, but it'll be the Memorial High School that's located in Madison, as opposed to the high school that is a memorial to James Madison. And that's a semantic difference that no one will remember in a few years, probably, unless they dig up the YouTube of this particular discussion. But I think it's important enough that it is distinct and it makes a difference for me in terms of which names I can support.
Cynthia?
Thanks. I just have one question, Julian, before I share a few thoughts. The gentleman who submitted a letter who was previously on this committee, is he still a member of this committee?
No, he is not.
Okay, thank you. So I want to respond to a few things. I understand and appreciate people's positions and value feedback and receive that. I am an alum of Madison Memorial. I am the child of someone who was a guidance counselor at Madison Memorial for decades. And my mother also taught at Memorial. I substitute taught at Memorial in French classes because I spoke French and was attending UW-Madison. So a few things I want to say. One, I value and appreciate what Eliana is saying about her friend circle and people to whom she's reached out who may exceed or be beyond her immediate friend circle for feedback from current students. That is important, and it is a part of this puzzle. So are all the alum who came decades before, and so are all the children who have yet to attend Memorial High School. So Eliana, I'm glad you're here to provide that perspective because I think it is incredibly valuable. And it is an important part of the larger audience we need to consider. So I am so incredibly grateful you are here. That said, we've talked about, I heard Sean use the term whitewashing. I am troubled by that coming from a white guy. So I'll say that. And someone who does not have direct ties to Memorial and maybe doesn't understand the the feelings and the vibe that people associate with the name Memorial High School. So I want to respond to that. I don't think that changing the name to just Memorial High School, and I'm not saying it was my first choice because it wasn't, but just changing the name to Memorial High School is not, quote, whitewashing. And here's what I'll say. I come from a biracial background. Our chair has a brown face. Several of my friends and graduates and alum from Memorial have brown faces and do not have a strong opinion about Memorial whitewashing or being an issue as a name. So I'm troubled by that statement and questioning the appropriateness of the source of the comment. So I wanted to say that on the record and for any public observing that. I would also say that I also raised concern about the committee member who didn't do the work or the research we were all tasked and took seriously to do, but chose to submit a letter and lambast an individual who is associated with one of the proposed names. And I take issue with that. One, because procedurally it's inappropriate. Clearly, Julian and others agreed because that individual is no longer on the committee. Two, I knew Bruce Dahman personally. I knew him my entire life. I would never say the experiences I had with Bruce Dahman and the majority of the experiences I know people had with Bruce Dahman represent all of the experiences with Bruce Dahman. I would never say that because that would be ignorant and short-sighted. What I will say is I believe he was a fantastic individual. He raised a fantastic couple of sons who are members of this community, and his wife is still here, and I am sure she is watching. So to be that disrespectful as committee members is deeply troubling and upsetting to me. So I would say, again, he was a phenomenal human being, and he saved my little brother, who had a very similar story to the gentleman who's no longer on this committee. So I struggle with the accuracy of that story, but I can't tell someone what their experience was or was not. All I know is what mine was. In terms of rising to the challenge from the initial proposal, Maya brought forth an incredibly important and necessary conversation in this community. I don't want any child in any school to ever feel marginalized, including my own, attending Madison Public Schools. So that's why I feel this is an important part of this community. I appreciate the thought of Vel Phillips being brought forth. I think she was a phenomenal woman. I'd met her and had enjoyed conversations with her. She doesn't have direct connections to Madison. She has connections to Wisconsin, and she was phenomenal. And she was an extraordinary woman of color. And I admire and respect her history, her legacy, and the statue that they're putting appropriately at the steps of the foot of the Capitol. I don't think that this is about taking a safe position. I think this is about taking a standard position where everyone feels safe who attends this school. And if you read the sentiment of the submission behind Memorial High School, it was exactly what Eliana pointed out, to memorialize every alumni, alive and past, current and future. And I think that encompasses truly the sentiment we have been handed the task to capture and what we bring forth. That is all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Very well said. And we appreciate you. Glenn, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I took it down because it's one of my pet peeves when I forget to take down the hand. Everybody really appreciate the heart that's in this meeting and the minds that are in this meeting, much smarter than I, and really learning a lot from you. And taking notes a little bit. So, you know, I worked at West for 10 years, and this is my 11th year at Memorial. It was from the Chicago area before them. I will definitely say it's hard for me to imagine someone more committed to a school building than Bruce. I really kind of marveled at it, to be honest with you. It was hard to, I never had a principal that had a door open all the time where people could just walk in and talk to him wherever they were. So very welcoming, treated like a home, going from the teacher to assistant principal to principal role, just such a commitment over the years. And then it's like a family business. I come from a family who has a family business. So I always thought he runs it like a family business, which was kind of neat because you don't see that a lot. And it made me feel very homey. So I understand why people, just on the sheer commitment of Bruce, let alone, his character, and certainly not perfect, and nobody is, would want Bruce to be the name for the high school. And he certainly was on my list in my top 4 or 5. But I had a hard time, like Amber, picturing a white male as the name of this high school. For me personally, I thought of the charge of how this all came about, working with, a student. My caseload is mostly students of color now, and just thinking about as a school, I think we're in the 40-something% of students of color at Memorial, like, up. Amber's saying up. Yeah. So I think about what is a student? How can we engage as many students as possible, especially any that may have been marginalized at some other point in time. I love the idea of a female of color, and there were certainly some great names on there. I did think about somebody local. So Hancock was high on my list because of that, though Val Phillips, is amazing as well. It's funny with the memorial name. I went back to 2 things. One, my wife is a graduate from West, and then she has family that graduated from West and Memorial. So me being from Illinois, I would hear them with this rivalry between West and Memorial, and they always said West or Memorial. So I never thought about Madison Memorial until somebody says, which memorial are you talking about? And then they say Madison Memorial. Sounds like a cheer. And that came up for me when I'm doing a college code for a student for the ACT, because what does it look like in there? And I'm looking for the name. And there are a lot of Memorial high schools, let me tell you, around the country. There's a lot of Memorial high schools in Wisconsin, actually, more than just Beloit. But for me, I was very comfortable saying Memorial, just like West, because nobody ever said, hey, do you go to Madison West? If they're a local, you say West or East, and then you'd say Memorial. And the one name just kind of seemed to ring. So adding Madison to the Memorial to me felt like an extra. I'm like, why do we have to have 2 names when they can have 1? So I was fine with the Memorial on that piece. I know that's a very simple-minded approach, but it's how my practical mind works on that one. I don't really have a big opinion either way on it, but for practicality, that came up. The last thing I guess I want to say is, what's in a name, right? Like, of course, students who didn't go to school while Bruce was there are going to say, who's Bruce Dahman? I don't know who half the people that high schools are named after, who those people are. A name should be part of a school's vision and where the school is trying to go for its future. And it brings with it the history in the name. And a name always takes educating. Like, I could go to a high school that says Milt McPike High School. It's not going to mean anything to me until someone gives me the speech. And the speech is, Milt McPike was a blah, 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 amazing person. This is what he did. This is what he stands for. This is what he's known for. This is what he did for the community. And that's when you're like, wow, I'm really proud to be a part of that. Well, if we can't say that with the name that we put forth, and I think that, certainly we are charged with a local stake in this, like a local person. So a stake in Madison, and then, the history, like we can't worry about the name recognition of the person, really. It's really assume somebody knows nothing, assume a minority student or a student who's white walks in the school and they know nothing about the name. When we go to tell them about the name, is it in line with our mission with the school? Is it the values we're trying to teach? Is it engaging? Do they see themselves in the name somehow? Or that's what a name is. And so I feel like when we put a name forth, it should have that kind of potential in it that we can teach about it, because we'll have to, because most of the kids won't have known. Whoever name we use, they're not going to know. But can we teach about it and have it be what we stand for? So sorry if that took too long.
No, great contribution. And that's also, just want to add in, that's why Memorial and Madison Memorial and something without a name didn't rank very high on my list. So I'm in support of that direction and that sentiment, Lynn. So thank you. Rosemary.
Hey, everybody. So I just wanted to explain a little bit where I'm coming from and how I ranked the names that I put forward. Like I've mentioned before, I worked at Memorial for 25 years. For a long time, I served with Bruce. He was like a father. I loved Bruce. Like Len said, he was somebody who always had his door open. It just felt like a family there, right? It was just an honor and a privilege to work with Bruce. And at the same time, I feel as a Latina, as somebody who has watched the school progress over the 25 years to being primarily a white school, to moving into a very diverse school. It's amazing. It makes me so happy every day to see the diversity that we have at Memorial now. I feel like it's, my responsibility to advocate for not another white male being, named a high school named after a white male, but a female, a person of color. Those are things that, I don't know, I don't have the statistics here in Madison, but I know growing up here in Madison that it was far and few between that I, saw teachers of color, administrators of color, buildings, anything, right? Relating to me, to other children. And so I put down, Darlene Hancock as my first choice because she's an educator, because she seemed to stand for, like Len was saying, people, things that are important to us, family engagement, right? Recognizing kids' work, her commitment to the community, et cetera. And then, Val Phillips, also another amazing woman. After that, I put down 2 men, right? But they were men of color, because to me, that's important that they be represented somehow. And as far as Memorial and Madison Memorial, I'm okay with Memorial High School. I put Madison Memorial as my last choice. And so I guess I don't have, my preference really would be Memorial versus Madison Memorial. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say, to let you know where I was coming from.
Thank you for that, Rosemary. We really appreciate your comments. Sean and Mark, I'll get to you guys in just a second. I want to throw this out there. After Mark and Sean speak, depending on where their comments will take us, I would like us to start thinking about, getting to a point where we decide if we're going to move forward with Memorial High School or Madison Memorial. So kind of put that to the back of your heads right now. With that being said, Sean.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to add from the discussion that just want those who are watching to make sure that they know, and that we're remembering back to the research that was presented to us in the process of reviewing these names, that Val Phillips does indeed have a connection to Madison. In fact, she has several connections to Madison. She was the first African-American graduate of UW Law School here in Madison. She also lived in Madison when she was the Secretary of State. And she was later a visiting law professor at the UW Law School later on in her career as well. So she has multiple connections actually to Madison, and was a member of our community, as well as a member of the community, obviously in Milwaukee, when she served on the Common Council in Milwaukee. And then just to clarify a second thing, when I used the term whitewashing, I just want to make sure because some words were put in my mouth. I was not referring to anyone's race or anyone's skin color, as was implied. Rather, whitewashing means deliberately attempt to conceal unpleasant or incriminating facts about someone or something. So when I use the word whitewashing, what I was referring to was the idea that if we agree with the value of the name James Madison perhaps not being a suitable name for our school anymore, that in my view, that if we were to simply eliminate the name James from the school, that could perhaps conceal the fact that we're not really reckoning with that history and that we're not really making a clean break with that history. And so that was the reason why I employed that term. And I just wanted people to understand that. And then the last thing that I'll say, well, actually, Mark, I think, is speaking next. So
thanks for your
Oh,
clarity.
go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean. I was going to say, while you got it, keep going.
I was just going to make the motion, but I think we can
All right,
do that
okay.
after Mark speaks. I don't want to cut him off or anything.
All right, sounds good.
That's actually what I was going to do too, because I think everybody's had a chance to weigh in on this now, but I don't want to steal Sean's thunder if you were going to make a motion, although technically under Robert's rules, you're not supposed to speak and then make a motion. But
Mark, do you mind if I just say something real quick?
yeah, go ahead. I don't want to make the motion until everybody's had a chance to.
Thanks. So correction, Sean, I'm fully aware of who Val Phillips is, and I'm glad that you chose to educate those watching again, in case they didn't know. My point was Val Phillips does not have a direct connection to the Madison Public Schools. So if I didn't say all of that, that was my intention. And that's all I have to say about your comment.
Thank you so much.
All right, Mark, can you go, Mark, if you're going to make a motion, let's do it.
I am.
Yeah.
I would like to move that our recommended name to forward to the school board be Memorial High School, with additional finalists in no particular order. These are not ranked. These are just the 3 additional finalists of Val Phillips, Bruce Dahmen, and Darlene Hancock.
Does anyone second?
I'm going
that
to
motion?
second that.
I'm sorry, who is that?
Ron.
Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
I should say actually, subject to input at the public hearing.
Yes.
Subject to-
I was like, lest we forget, step number 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all those in favor of, and just to clarify, you're
Well-
saying Memorial should be the choice that we designate, and the other 3 should be suggestions.
Memorial would be our recommended option, and the other 3 would be additional finalists for the board to consider.
And now
Knowing,
we
of
open,
course, that the board can take whatever action pleases them.
and before we vote, we open it up for discussion, correct? I think that Memorial should be a suggestion. I don't think that it should be our distinction. I don't think that it holds enough weight. I think Memorial, there's so much that can be encompassed in this, the naming of this high school. And I simply think Memorial is a disservice to the community. I think it doesn't strengthen marginalized communities. I think that it is a good suggestion that should be considered, but that should not be the focus of this group. I don't think we met all this time and dedicated all this time just to get to Memorial High School. I just don't think that with the names that were submitted and that the impact that they have, that trumps that to be our distinct choice to the school board. And this is the time for discussion before we put it into vote. But that's what I would like to add to this discussion, and I'll leave it open if anyone wants to raise their hand. Cynthia.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. I'm just gonna, and I hear what you're saying. So I want to go back to the actual submission, and that is in our board docs for Memorial High School. And just want to read this. The name Madison Memorial is true to the heart of our school and the heart of our city. While James Madison Memorial High School may memorialize a controversial historic figure and create an atmosphere of tension and harm, Madison Memorial serves to honor and recognize the people of this great city and the students who attend this school. Like Madison West, Madison East, Madison Memorial would be one of the schools to commemorate the history of the city and the best fitted to as the name Memorial signifies. Madison Memorial is also the closest possible fit to JMM's current name. So while it erases the pain of something, I don't know what this word is. Oh, James Madison. It also is not so much of a change that it would, excuse me. Shh, Finley, get the dogs. It's not so much of a name that it would, excuse me. Excuse me for a second. Stop it. Finley,
We need a dog icon to put
Yeah,
on the
dog
front
icon,
screen.
let people
Oh,
know.
sorry, you guys. They're
No, no
coming
problem.
at me from all directions. Be quiet. The comment goes on to say, and that wasn't the dogs in Sean's background that time. Those are legitimately mine. So it is also not so much a change that it would disrupt or upset those attached to the current name, befitting everyone. And Madison Memorial is the name people often use anyhow when referring to our school. Not only would we keep our own students from being confused, we would prevent the confusion of those outside our school community. As a senior at Memorial, there is no name I would love more than Madison Memorial in renaming our school. I would be honored to say I graduated from a school that immortalizes the city I grew up in and the people that have helped me become who I am today. From the bottom of my heart, I believe Madison Memorial is the perfect name for our school from every aspect imaginable. And there's a really similar submission for Madison Memorial as well. So I kind of just wanted to remind everyone of the intent behind the submission, despite how we are looking at it, and maybe try to keep that in mind as we're considering the name.
I think that before you go, Mark, I want to kind of go off of that because that's a very good point. I don't want to make any assumptions about who made that submission, nor do I want to make any assumptions about the ethnic background of any of these committee members. That's a great submission for the terms of how we rank things and got to where we are. I can tell you as an alum and even just as a Black man, I feel none of those things to the name Madison Memorial. I think that it's safe. And I think that if we're going to refer to it as Memorial anyways, or if we're going to refer to it as Madison Memorial, regardless if Phillips is before, which is going to happen, we should put someone's name, whether it be Bruce, whether it be Vale. It needs to be someone, as Lynn pointed to earlier, that educates people. I can assume, and no, I'm not even going to assume. I'm going to stop there. I know from the people I spoke with, from my community, that there's no tie to Memorial, and it's not a bad thing, and it's not a positive thing. It's just a whatever thing. And if it's just a whatever thing, that's not a benefit to marginalized communities. That's not a benefit to people whose voices aren't heard. So if we name it Memorial, that submission is good, but that submission is probably only the sentiment to white people, because Black people don't feel that way about the name Memorial or Madison Memorial, and that doesn't unify us to that school. Does it hurt us? No. Does it make us feel negative? No. Does it make us feel less pride about who we are? No. But all of that is too safe for me, and that's why we are where we are in this juncture. That's why things are the way they are in this country. That's why things are in our community, and we have a chance here to educate people, whether it be someone of color or not. That person whose name comes before this high school needs to be someone that encompasses our vision, someone that we can be proud of, and someone that we can follow the legacy of their life. Madison Memorial does none of that. Neither does Memorial, regardless to what that submission is. And that's speaking from a person who was Black in Memorial hallways, someone who's proud of being from Memorial, and someone who is a member of this community. With that being said, we'll go to Mark.
I really appreciate that sentiment, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad we have your perspective on this committee because it's extraordinarily valuable. My thought was really to honor what Amber and others and the community has said, in that the name just Memorial is not about a person. And we remove that whole issue and the potential for 50 years from now. And I would say that if we put another person's name in front of it, it won't be referred to for very long as Memorial High School. It will be referred to as that person's name. So if it's Bell Phillips, it'll be referred to as Bell Phillips High School, and that'd be great. But that's a significant branding difference, to follow up on Ron's point, than what we have today.
And just to kind of wrap this back before we vote, I think that, Memorial is not a bad submission or suggestion. I don't think it should be our distinction. I don't think that should be, we shouldn't go to the board and say we want Memorial and suggest these other names. I think we should say we suggest our choice is this, and we suggest Memorial and 2 and 3, just because for all the points that I kind of mentioned. I do think that, if it was, I think Memorial, regardless to whose name is before it, will be Memorial. I just think that education piece and that vision and that change that could be made right now is something that we should take in consideration before we make Memorial our distinct option. Eliana?
I just have kind of a procedural question. So if we're deciding tonight what our distinction and what our top 3 choices are, we then have this public hearing. After that public hearing, when we hear from the public, can we then change our opinions? Could we then discuss again? Is what we're deciding tonight really just what's going forward to the public hearing?
That's a great question. Actually, Barb, can you answer that? Or
Yes, yes, you can change your mind after the public hearing and vote again.
Thank
I
you.
anticipate we would need to make a final vote.
right.
But this is only, like you said, we're just recommending what goes forward to the public hearing. And if today has taught us anything, it's that discussion changes minds.
And it's
Certainly
great.
has changed mine.
And it's great. I'm glad. I was so excited for this. I'm so glad we got to this point. Doing all the analytical and the number thing was great to weed out all the submissions. But this is what it's about right here. And I want to just say thank you guys for all your input. And we're not wrapping things up, but this has been very beneficial. It's been effective. So thank you guys. And as we continue, don't hold back anything, because we need to do our due diligence. Amber?
Thanks. I think based on Julian's comments and Mark's motion, which I don't even remember if Mark's motion got seconded or not. That was by Ron, if I'm remembering right.
Yes,
Ron.
Yeah.
by Ron.
I think we should move forward on that, and then depending on that outcome, that would determine if we change what goes forward to the public hearing. But we do have a motion in front of us pending Lynn's comment.
Lynn?
So first of all, Mark or Sean, thank you for reminding a little bit with Vel's association. I knew she was UW-Madison grad, but I didn't know the other 2 things. Or I forgot, which happens in your 50s. I will say that I wanted to mention that I have a little more skin in the game these days. I'm not just a Memorial counselor and a Madison employee of 20 years, but I just open enrolled my twins as juniors to Memorial. So they are now Memorial students, and I'm a Memorial parent, which just occurred to me to mention. I was thinking about how we think in the future, like what people will think of the name. And, if in 100 years they want to change the name, who cares? You know what? This is about now. This is about what we're trying to do with the name now. This is about who we are. And what we do, I think, will last for generations, certainly. But will probably be forgotten someday when other things are going on in our society and rise to the surface, and another committee like this meets, not as cool, of course, and has to figure this all out again. But I'm not worried about that 100 years from now. I'm worried about what we're trying to accomplish here. And I do agree with Julian that Memorial as a name would be all right, but not powerful, not dynamic, and not creating the change and not helping people feel welcome if they're really taught about the name and inspired and create a sense of identity as a person being associated with it. And Amber, I know that goes a little bit against what you were saying before. I really think that's an interesting contrast, and I see that both ways.
Thank you for your comments, Lynn. Much appreciated. Just to kind of remind people what the motion is before we take the vote. The motion is that we move forward with Memorial as our selection with Vel Phillips, Bruce, and what was the last one, Mark, as our suggestions?
Darlene Hancock.
And Darlene Hancock as our suggestions. So all in favor of that, say aye. All opposed, say aye.
Can you repeat that question for me?
So the question,
The suggestion, the vote?
the suggestion is that the motion is that Memorial be our selection, and that the suggestions be Vel Phillips, Darlene Hancock, and Bruce Diamond. But Memorial would be our selection. Memorial High School would be our selection.
Hold on, just to be clear, guys, these are the names that we're bringing forth to the public hearing.
But these would be the names that we move. Yeah, we bring forth to the public hearing, but as a committee, we will be saying Memorial High School is our number one choice, and these other things are suggestions
Yes.
to the public
Exactly.
hearing.
Yes.
I heard that wrong, so I'd love to revote.
Okay, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
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 All opposed, say aye.
Aye.
No, motion denied.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to get those notes again. I'm sorry. It's a lot easier to do it when I'm facing you. So all the nays, please raise your hand and keep them up until I'm done. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
With that being said, I think those four suggestions, okay, I think those four, I'll go quick, Eliana. I think those four suggestions are good suggestions. I think the selection is my problem. So we can discuss that. I think if we put our number one choice as something different, I'm fine with that. I just don't think Memorial should be our selection to the public hearing. Eliana?
So I'm just kind of wondering, do we need to have our distinction picked out for the public hearing? Like personally, I would almost prefer if we just bring the four names kind of on an equal playing field to the public hearing, hear what the public has to say, and then conduct our vote on which one we want as our kind of distinction once we've heard from more people. Is that something that we would be able to do?
Barb, if we can do that, I think that's a great suggestion. I didn't know that.
Sure,
We can do that.
sure.
We'll just have to make that motion.
That's great to note. Great suggestion.
Eliana, make that motion, girl. Do it.
Okay. I motion that we move forward to the public hearing with Darlene Hancock Memorial High School, Vel Phillips Memorial High School, and Bruce Diamond Memorial High School in no particular order as our four choices to bring to the public hearing and hear comment on.
Second, this is Mark.
Now we open up this motion for discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say aye. Motion granted.
Unanimous? Thank you so much.
Unanimously.
Yep. That's our last step in the process, Julian. Step 4 is the public hearing, and then another rank voting exercise after the public hearing that Mark can lead.
And then we just come back, and then that's when we can revisit the conversation.
Yep.
Should someone have their hand up and take it down? Or, oh no, or Sean, was that you clapping for? Okay.
No, it was me. I was actually, Eliana took the words right out of my mouth. We didn't need to decide on one name at this point in the process. We can take 4 to the public hearing.
That's perfect. Well, honestly, if there's nothing else to be said, we can kind of wrap this up because I think that we've done our part for tonight, and now we just wait for the public hearing. I have a question for Barb while the committee's here. This public hearing, is this something that the whole committee attends?
It's still a meeting of the committee.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So then you'll tell us the date, and then I'll get the communication out to the committee. It's 14 days from now, yay?
Yep. So the public hearing would happen. and then
That's a
we-
guideline. That is a guideline. So,
So-
you know, we can do what we need to do.
Is the
Um,
hearing virtual?
That's a really good question. We still are not holding board meetings with the public in the administration building. So we are still virtual that way. However, if the committee wants to do something different, we could try to do something in person, but I think it would be pretty tough at this point, particularly given the district's position on the virus.
Let's
I
stay
think we
virtual.
should respect the district's
Yeah,
position.
let's just stay
Yeah, I'd
virtual.
love to do it in person,
Virtual.
but we should respect the board's
Yeah, I
guidance
think
on
we
this.
should follow whatever
Thank
the
you.
board is following.
Cynthia, you're going to describe how the public hearing kind of works. I would love to hear that.
Same.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next step is, as Barb mentioned, the 14 days is advisory. I think it's probably reasonable, but we could extend the time if we wanted. I don't know. I guess we could talk about that. But at the next meeting, we would open up, Julian would open up as the chair, committee chair, to public comment and how we reached our decision. He would explain that of the 4 names that we're bringing forward to open up for public comment. We would listen and we would listen to whoever attends virtually, presumably, and hear what they have to say. And then I think we would convene the public comment section, possibly with a break or something, just so that we make sure that we're clearing the decks. And then we would come back in with that, the rank choice selection, again, to reduce that number from 4 to 1. Then we present the 1 name to the board with the explanation of how we reached that decision, along with all the other proposed names per item 4 of the committee's charge in the last documents.
When you
in
say
the
all
next
the other
meeting-
names, do you mean
The other 3.
3 other names? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
Yep.
And so essentially we'll hear from the public and then we'll go through another one of the ranked choice voting processes live and for full transparency.
Is
And
there a
then-
consensus on using that tool again, or do we want to do some other methodology?
I like it. I think we should use it again.
I think
Everyone's
it's
putting
clean.
thumbs up. I think everybody wants to do that
Yeah.
again. That was cool.
It's
So now-
clean,
Yeah.
it's visible. People can see what we're doing. There's no question of how we're calculating these things.
The results were a surprise to me, and I thought that was interesting. But I'm not surprised that we decided to do something different than the results of the ranking.
Are we Barb, is the public hearing date set by us, or do you guys set it did the school board set it, or do we?
We'll do that with you together, Julian, as the chair of the committee. We have several things to discuss about that, how we want to hold it, where we want to hold it, when we want to hold it, and how we want to get the word out about it, because we want the whole world to know about it.
Perfect. Well, I think that tonight you guys did a great job, and I think we discussed what we needed to discuss. So at 6:36 p.m., September 14th, 2021. Oh, Amber, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand. So do we need to set a date the entire committee can be at, or will a date simply be set and we should be there if we can?
So it would be great to have the entire committee there. So if you want to agree on a date, that would be awesome. We can take the time to do that.
Especially
do
if
you
we're
guys-
going to finalize our vote that same night.
How do you
We
guys,
all want to be there.
does Tuesday work for you guys?
So I was gonna say, if that's the case, 2 weeks from now, the only time because of commitments actually at school, we have like back to school night and all of that week, would be the 30th, would be the first date I could do.
Okay. The 30th at 5, which would be Thursday, a Thursday. Does anyone have any objections to that? Does that work for everyone?
That's beautiful. Thank you.
That was scary easy.
Oh, wait,
Eliana
Eliana,
has her hand up.
Mr. Mormino, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that not financial aid night for Memorial upperclassmen?
It is, and I just saw that when you mentioned that. That could be a problem, if not for us, for some people who would like to be at the meeting,
Right,
but
right.
might be parents of seniors or juniors especially.
What about October 5th, Tuesday, October 5th, that next Tuesday? Nope, no again, Amber? Well, we could, the 6th, Wednesday, does Wednesday work?
No, I work all the home volleyball games. This is the issue, both boys and girls. So I could do the 4th or the 7th that week.
Let's do the 7th. Let's do October 7th at 5. Is that okay with everyone, Eliana?
I don't believe that I can make that day work.
The 4th would be a problem. It's our big FAFSA support night, College Goal Wisconsin, that Memorial is hosting.
One,
Monday's our board meeting night, right?
right.
Yes.
So
we
then
don't
that-
conflict with that.
That moves us back to, because Amber, are the home games, are there any home games on the 12th or the 13th of October?
Not the 13th.
So that would move us back to October 13th at 5 p.m.
So that happens to be our scholarship night at Memorial. It's a jam-packed month when we get in a lot of stuff for seniors and juniors, so I apologize.
Are we facing an impossible task to try to schedule around all the events?
I wanted to-
at Memorial.
I wanted to avoid Mondays and Fridays, but if Mondays, I mean, that 4th seemed open, October 4th seemed open. So if you guys, October 4th at 5 p.m., are there any conflictions?
Yeah, that College Goal Wisconsin is kind of a biggie. I wouldn't be able to be there. And I think that senior families, that's our big push to get everyone's support to get the pass it on. The 12th, how does that look?
I think Amber has a volleyball game on the 12th.
Oh, okay, got it.
There's no, well, you have to discuss this, but there's no problem with doing things on the weekends either.
That might be more accessible to members of the public who,
It may be.
5
For
o'clock
people
can be
working, yes.
problematic for
Yeah,
people who work a
Actually, really
daytime
good.
schedule, and I wouldn't have any objection to that.
I don't have any objections to that either. I think that's a good point. Accessibility, more people might actually be able to log in.
So if we can't do anything, I'm out of town October 7th. October 2nd or October 3rd, Saturdays or Sundays? The 2nd is a Saturday, October 3rd is a Sunday.
October 2nd is a home UW football game. I don't know if that presents a problem for anyone.
Yeah, that was my concern. If we get into weekends, we're going to get into a lot of sporting conflicts with families, like with younger kids who have all of their competitions on the weekends. And I would hate to exclude any of those families. I think obviously it'd be ideal if we can all be at a committee meeting, at this public hearing, but if we can't, I would like to get this nailed down and give the public an opportunity to talk about this. So if it means I'm not there or whatnot, I'm comfortable with that because we've had plenty of discussion here. So I would like to, let's pick a weeknight date, only because I would hate to exclude families with not only athletic, but also religious events. I know Saturdays and Sundays both are religious days for families. So let's just move on a date, and yeah, I would think the preponderance of us can be there at all of them. So.
And do we have to, and after, Barb, correct me if I'm wrong, after we hear public hearing, if we need to, we can have another committee meeting to discuss that, right? Before we present to the board?
Yes, you could if you wanted to, yes.
Okay, so we don't have to make a final decision after hearing. We don't have to do it all in one night.
So I just want to go back to financial aid, the scholarship night. We are making an effort to record those. If we had to do it on one of those nights and a parent wanted to be at this hearing, they could still view that on video.
What day is the scholarship night?
So the financial aid night is on the 30th and the scholarship night is on, the 13th.
I think that was our only conflict on the 30th.
Yeah, let's just do, can we do that following week on Tuesday, the 5th?
Well, was
No,
that a
I think,
sporting?
I think the
sporting
question
comment?
is the 30th. The 5th is not, I mean, is
You
the
have-
only,
If we can avoid, okay.
we can do the 5th. I won't be there, but we can do the 5th.
How
But you
about
would,
this?
you would be at the 30th. Would you be at the 30th? Okay.
How about this, Julian, to your suggestion, why don't we just do the public hearing, the comments and hear from everyone, which is recorded anyway. So for anyone on the committee who cannot attend because of all the heavy school stuff back to school, they can still have time to review it. And then we would just do the
Another,
discussion and live ranked choice in a subsequent meeting? Was
But I
that what
think
you were
everybody
suggesting?
can be there on the 30th, right?
no. Frank
Oh,
can't
okay,
be there
sorry.
and,
I can't, no, I can't make.
Okay, my mistake, sorry.
In the air.
well, then
So
if that's the case,
I
if
know
that's
that slows down the process, but
if that's the case, we could do the 28th or 29th then, because we're not making any decisions. We're just opening it up for public hearing, and then we can come back. So we can move this thing up then if we're gonna agree to have a meeting after it. So how do you guys, what are schedules like on the 28th at 5 p.m.?
I can't the 28th, but I can the 29th.
Okay, how does the 29th sound?
works.
29th at 5 p.m. Barb.
Got it.
Woo!
And before I make the same, okay, go ahead, Frank.
I'm just
Yeah,
gonna say,
one
I
quick-
won't be there. So you all can take the blowback for me and then I'll watch it later with some popcorn.
And I can do that on the 30th as well, if I'm the only one missing the 30th. So just to throw that out there. And then just quickly regarding communication to the world, just want to make sure that includes students.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Barbara.
I
As long as
would
we're on
also
cue.
ask that members of the committee really get out to your networks in whatever way that you currently do and blast it out there best you can.
I'd
just
like to give a
curious.
shout out on that topic to the Cap Times. Has been the only media that I'm aware of that has been covering this process. So thank you to them.
What
Can
will
I
this
ask-
hearing be like? Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
I was just gonna ask that if Barb could potentially relay any like PR materials, stuff that's posted on social media so that we can spread it and amplify it. I think that would, that's something I definitely like to do.
I can do that, Sean. Thank you.
If somebody was coming to the hearing and they had not read anything and they had not heard much about it, what information would they have starting off at the hearing to kind of get to a foundation or ground zero or is it really just all people who have been kind of keeping track of this and now they finally have a chance to kind of share some opinion? Well, what information will be shared at the beginning of the hearing? I'm just curious.
We'll have to craft a message, Len, that will somewhat summarize what the committee has done to date. In addition, the names that you're considering at the hearing. So we're gonna have to figure that out. That'll take a little bit.
But of course, people can make whatever comments they like, and our job is to sit there and listen.
Yes, this is not a dialogue. This is a 3-minute statement to you. Okay.
I want to clarify
ahead.
one other thing. We had spoken in our last meeting, and I just want to verify that whatever we land on, it's still going to be, if we choose a name to put on the school, it will be the name Memorial High School, correct?
Correct. Correct.
that's what I
motion
thought.
was passed.
Yeah, okay.
Eliana,
Just to clarify, the public hearing is going to be on the 29th at 5 p.m.
correct,
That's what I have, yes.
correct. Anybody else before I make the same mistake and start adjournment without considering other comments? Or you guys, raise your hand. Cynthia.
Move to adjourn.
I'm so sorry. I have one more question. Are we allowed to share this information with the public about the meeting, the public hearing? Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Please
Loud
do.
and encouraged.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure we're not violating some like obscure rule or something. That's all.
Nope, the more the better, for sure.
Cynthia, even your dogs are invited.
Yep.
Oh my God, don't say that. I have 2 little chihuahuas that any one of you are welcome to give a good home to, and promise I'll visit occasionally. That's it.
All right.
Well, if anyone's done at 6:47, 9/14, 2021, I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second,
Do I have to vote on it?
Yes, sir.
All in favor of adjourning this meeting, say aye.
Unanimous. Thank
Pass
you.
unanimously. You guys have a great evening.
Bye, guys.
thanks, everybody.
Again,
Really good
Julian, for
discussion.
your leadership.
Thank you. Thank
Appreciate
you.
you.
Bye, guys.
Great job, Bob.